Hello and welcome to this episode of Steel Fur's Class Intros. I haven't thought of a catchy name, but it's fine. In the first video of this playlist, which you'll have seen, hopefully, you got an overview of all of the different heroes, how they worked, and what their initial playstyle was. Now we're going to deep dive into the first hero from that list as the start of this series, which is going to be Ira. Ira the Crimson Haze. Now, Ira is essentially the first hero that most players were introduced to. She was the default welcome deck for the game, given away free at Learn to Play events. Most Learn to Play events were just people playing this deck, and they all got given the deck for free. Your LGS should still have copies of this deck available, especially if they're from the latest printing. Do not buy this deck online. If you see it for like €50 or something like that, that is a specific original collector's print, which is like a 2018 unsealed copy, which is the original versions of these decks. The new 2020 version has been printed to, obscenity. You should be able to get this for free from an LGS in your country. If you really cannot get one, please do let me know. Please do try, because I do have a limited number available, but if you really want an Ira deck and you cannot get one, please do let me know. There are some 2020 ones available that I can access, that I can send to people, but obviously I'll do that under special circumstances. So Ira is the original ninja, before anything else came out. Her ability is very simple. Her second attack each turn gets +1. You might think, hey, that's not that big, but actually it's pretty huge. We see her combo cards. Basically, she focuses around playing cards higher up on the chain link than previous cards, right, were played. So getting Go Again and playing multiple attacks a turn. And that means playing things like Scar for Scar to get Go Again when you're on less life, and then playing Flying Kick for +2 damage if it was chain link 3 or higher. It means playing Torrent of Tempo and lunging pressing to make sure Torrent of Tempo hits, and then coming in with Assault the Wound that gives +1 for each attack that hit this combat chain. But that's not really... that's how Ira was meant to be played, but that's not how really Ira gets played, okay? Ira is fundamentally a powerful hero because her hero ability doesn't require you to play in a specific way. And that meant that and remember, Ira is only a young hero, so when you're looking at this, there is only Ira for Blitz. Ira was all about blocking and attacking with consistency. Okay, so when you look at the Ira decks, you'll see a lot of these cards like Flick Flack, which is a defense reaction that lets you block for 4, and makes your next card with combo block for 2, which means any Flick Flack you play is adding another 2 block to the chain after the first block that you just did, which means that by filling your deck with good combo cards and lots of Flick Flacks, Ira could essentially block very well, and then pick her turns to come in with stuff like Enlighten Strike for a 7 strength attack, or Flying Kick for a 7 strength attack. And Ira would basically control the game, play quite slowly, and then come in with these big attacks. But the basic theme of playing Ira is this loop of Kodachis, right? I pitch a blue that costs 0. I stab you once with the Kodachi. I stab you a second time with the Kodachi, and because of Ira's ability, it gets +1. So then I'm attacking you with a 2 strength weapon for 2 pitch, and I'm attacking you for 3 every turn, pitching 1 card. That means that I can block with 3 cards a turn and still come in with consistent damage every turn. And that's where Ira is the strongest. You take all of this equipment and you use it to threaten more attacks and more damage. So for example, Mask of Momentum is the default ninja headpiece. What this does for you is that when the third attack action card you control or higher in a chain link hits, you draw a card. So Ira's ideal game plan is to play a Kodachi Stab into something like a Go Again leg tap, or a Go Again life for life, or a Go Again Torrent of Tempo, maybe using Wraith of Reflex, which is the attack reaction that makes something hit, to get it to hit or to give it Go Again, and then turn that into a card draw from Mask of Momentum, and then come in with another big attack. Now those are the turns that she does when she's on the attack. Most of the time, Ira players, and Ira is going to be on the defensive. She's going to be blocking with all of her cards that have 3 block. She's going to be using the defense reactions in her deck. This one has 6 in. Some of the lists have 10 in. She's going to be healing health with Sigil of Solace, just to gain 3 life to win those games. And she's basically going to be playing a slow control game. Ira was actually the original control hero, so don't be sort of like tricked into thinking, oh, Ira looks super aggressive. She was actually the original control hero. where she would block a lot and then choose the turns when she came in with big damage. And that's what you get if you play Ira. And if you want to play Ira, that's the sort of game plan that you're going to be investing in. You're going to be putting out consistent threats. You're going to be using those threats to put your opponent onto a back foot where if they want to deal a lot of damage to you because you're blocking so much, they're going to have to take the damage from the small stabs of your swords. But in blitz format, that rapidly adds up because you only have 20 life. And then once they've taken that damage and they get into a position where you can start to hurt them back, that's when you're going to start playing out these big attacks, when you've got the spare resources to pay for them, and push through that damage when they really can't afford to not block. And once you have them blocking consistently, obviously the amount of pressure they put on you in return is reduced, the amount of blocking you have to do is reduced, and the number of big hits that you come into them with is also reduced. But the real way that this deck wins, the real kicker here, is just these Kodachis. These are arguably one of the best weapons in the game. Basically, the reason that is that you can hold one card in your hand and attack for 1, and then attack for 2. Because you play 2 of these cards and they're one-handed, so you can attack for 1 and then attack for 2. And it's from 2 separate sources. So when the game starts to get really low on life, when both players are on 1 or 2 life, every time Ira attacks with a Kodachi, someone has to block it, right? And when you get late in the game and all the armor is used up and all these other things, and you're basically in the fatigue stage of the game, the Kodachi takes a card from hand with each block, right? And if you're on 1 life, and Ira is playing Razor Reflex, which can buff up Kodachi, then that 1 card block on Razor Reflex becomes a 4 card block if you're on 1 life, right? But Ira is the queen of grinding out the game when both players get to low life. In the similar way that Katsu is in Constructed. We'll get to that later. Ira is the queen of grinding out games when both players are on low life. So that sounds like the sort of game plan you want. And if you want to play the absolute best hero in, well, I would say arguably probably the best hero. It's not to say she doesn't have heroes that aren't good matchups into her, like Kano or Oldhim or other things. But Ira is arguably the best hero in Blitz. So if you want that experience of controlling the game, but attacking with these big hits for go again on your own tempo, of looking for those moments to take the tempo back from your opponent, and looking for the moments when they're weak and you can push damage, and then getting them down to this point where you're inevitably going to win because every game comes down to I'm on low life, you're on low life, but I'm attacking with my 2 swords every turn, then maybe Ira is the deck for you. She's also a ninja, which is one of the best classes in the game, and her art is phenomenal. She has a lot of things going to her. She does have a lot of fans, I will say, just because of the fact that she was everyone's first hero mostly. So do expect to play a lot of the Ira Mirror, which is I would say one of the most interesting but also most tiring and unforgiving games of Flesh and Blood you'll ever play. The original Blitz season with Ira was just constant Ira mirrors. This is a serious problem. If you look through my channel, you'll find a video saying, does Flesh and Blood have an Ira problem? Because you would go to a Blitz event and over 50% of the competition would be Ira players. And that has changed a bit recently because we haven't been playing Blitz as much, and also there's been a lot more. There are new heroes that can counter her better. But, for a while there, she was the default hero. And some metas like Malaysia would essentially all just be Ira or Kano, because Kano has a good gap matchup into Ira, and everyone else was playing Ira, and it would be non-stop Ira mirrors. So do just be prepared that Ira does have a bit of a reputation as the best hero in Blitz. If you play this meta deck, you are probably going to win a lot of games. You will also get a really good introduction to the game because it is just about attacking and blocking. There is no fancy stuff going on here. You've got 1-2 attack reactions. You don't have a lot of fancy stuff after that. So it is just about attacking and blocking. You will leave the Ira game knowing how to play Flesh and Blood better. But there is also that stigma of this was the best deck for over a year or 2, and people have played a lot against it, so you will be going up against people who have had a lot of practice into Ira decks. And there's a lot of stuff that comes with that. Anyway, that is Ira. I hope you found that interesting. And of course, please stay tuned to the rest of these videos. Because I think they are all going to be quite good. Be moving on to Dorinthia next. I think our warrior friends.